I'm Robert Selman, and I am a propagation specialist. Took the course in 2017. So we're going to try 2 or 3 different methods of propagation, and hopefully this will help each and every one to propagate plants of their own and increase their stock, or have some to give away or to sell, or whatever they want to do. We'll show you some things that we have to have in order to do propagation. I have this knife that I use to separate bulbs. You know, bulbs come in clumps and you have to separate them, so I use that so that I can separate them without damaging them very much. This knife I use to do propagation with the bulbs, and that's one thing we're going to do today is propagate some bulbs. Then I have the pruners, a larger one and a smaller one. I have a little fork here that when you're taking plants up out of a pot, you want to put this under the plant and not just pull it up, but go under the plant and bring it up. And this is just another knife here that you can use to cut your bulbs and whatever roots that you're going to propagate. We have rooting powder. You need that on some of the propagation. Some of them we're going to do today will not use. You never want to put your plant or cutting into this bottle. You want to put it in a separate container so that you don't contaminate that and run it. And then you also need some labels. You can use these craft sticks, Venetian blinds, or any type of deal or that you can find to show what you've got. And you need a lead pencil. Lead pencil is always better to use to mark your labels, because they will last longer than the inks and so forth. So we're going to start out today propagating a bulb. This is a bulb that I dug up, I think back in December, and you can see it's looks sort of rough, but bulbs really want to live. And this has been in our sunroom in a box, and it's trying to grow. So bulbs are pretty easy to do, and this is one thing that we want to try to do to increase our bulb. This happens to be a cranium spider lily. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this top off. We don't need that. We can dispose of that. And then we want to divide this bulb. You can see the inside of the bulb. You have your new growth here, your outer part, and your basal plate. And this basal plate is very important in doing this bulb chipping. So what we're going to do is take all of this outer part off. We don't need it. Just make it look a little bit better. It's very important in chipping bulbs, and you have to have that on each chip. So what we're going to do, we've taken the outer part off, and we're going to divide this bulb in as many sections as we can. but we want each section to have a piece of that basal plate. And we're going to take these and we're going to just put it down into this perlite. The perlite has been wetted and well drained, and we're just going to leave it like that. As many pieces that you can cut off of here and have a piece of that basal plate is what you want to do. And you want to put it down in the perlite, just the basal plate. You don't want to get too deep with it. And so out of this bulb, looks like we're going to be able to get 6 different pieces. We just put them around in this perlite. So you want to take your label and you want to put the date on it. It's very important that you put the date on there and what type of plant you have, so that you know what you have and when you started the propagation process, because you'll forget and you'll try to take it out too quick. And I'm going to show you something here. This is not part of a bulb, but after a week or two, these pieces are going to turn dark like this. They're going to look dead. Don't give up, because it's still okay, and it's going to be okay. It will take about 6 weeks, and I can't show you how the sprouts come up doing what we're doing right now, but it'll come a little sprout up from that basal plate, and then you'll have the start of your plant. You want to take this and put it in I use a 1.5 gallon or 2 gallon Ziploc bag. And it's going to hold the moisture in. You don't have to water it after you do this. And it needs bright light, but not direct sunlight. And so after about 6 weeks, you should start seeing a new little plant sprout up from that basal plate on each one of them. And then it will take, after you find that plant, you want to transfer each one into a small pot. Don't get too big a pot. And then as it grows, you can increase the size of the pot, or either you can go ahead and put them into your garden. So this is the bulb chipping. It's an easy process, and it's been very successful. If you've got bulbs that you don't have very many of and you want some more, this is a good way and a cheap way to get new bulbs and new plants. Okay, we're going to do simple division. We have some violets here that's in a clump, and we need to separate them. Simple division is one of the 3 most common methods of propagating plants and increase your stock of plants. The other 2 are seeds and cuttings. Division is simply taking a clump of plants and separating them out so that you can have different plants. You can put them in pots, or you can go ahead and put them in your out in your garden. But what we're going to do here is we're going to put some in a plant. You want to check and make sure there are places that you can divide these out easily. And you want to be sure and get plenty of roots. You need leaves, but you need more roots. Roots are very important. Now we've gotten two here that we can take and we can put in this pot. And so you want to look and see where you can separate them, either in a clump or individual plants. And you're going to take it loose, and you want to have plenty of roots. Roots are more important than the tops. You need a lot of roots to be able to propagate these correctly. Or, like I said, you can do them individually, or you can do a little clump of them. And then you take them and put them in your pot, or you can take and put these directly into your garden. You don't necessarily have to put them in the pot. So this is a simple way to increase your stock, to have more plants, and maybe share your plants with other folks, other gardeners, or your friends. So you see, we've got, out of this little clump, we've got several different groups of plants that we can share with someone else. So you want to have a pot label, like we did with the others, and you want to put what kind of plant you have, if you're going to put it in a pot, and put the date that you put it in there. And you can see that we have you want to use the proper size pot. You don't want to get one too big, and as the plants grow or start spreading, you can go to a larger pot. And you want to place the container in bright light, but not direct sunlight. Sometimes in the winter, it's sort of hard to get bright light out of a window, but you need a place where you can get bright light to propagate things correctly. Or you can take, like on shrubs, you have suckers that come off of the plant and they root. You can cut those off and take the roots and put those in a pot or put them out in your garden. There's just so many different ways to use this division to increase your stock, especially like your shrubs, roses, all of those that have runners and they begin to root. You can take those and carefully pot them and use them to increase your stock of plants. Next, we're going to do root cuttings. This is good for like blackberries and grapes and muscadines and things of that sort. And what you want to do is you got a root here, and you're going to cut it in sections. We'll take this off of here. And so we've got several pieces of root. And we've got a potting soil. You want the potting soil to be good and wet before you start. Then we're just going to lay these roots down in here on this potting soil, like such. And then you want to take potting soil and cover those. And it's going to take about 6 weeks, and you'll start seeing plants come up from those roots. And you want to label them just like with the others. Put the date on there and what you put in your pot. And you should have, like in this pot here, about 6 different plants that you can transplant, especially if you like blackberries and fruity type plants. You can do that. You want to be sure that somebody might try to use a plant different from that. You do not want to use a plant that has been grafted, because what's on the roots is not what's on the top of that plant. So this is a good way to, and it needs to be in bright light but not direct sunlight. You want to keep it damp but not over water so that you don't rot your roots out. But this is another good way to propagate and gain other plants, especially if you want more grape plants or blackberry plants or whatever. It's a good way to increase your stock. Next, we're going to do stem cuttings. And stem cutting is a quick and easy way to, and a cheap way to get an exact clone of the plant that you have. After the stem has been separated from the plant, you need to keep it damp till you get ready to do your propagation. You can use hardwood, semi-hardwood, and softwood. Hardwood cuttings are like shrubs and trees taken during the dormant season and all propagated cuttings. If the soil is warm, you can propagate them in the soil as well, and the air is cool. Also, semi-hardwoods are primarily deciduous evergreens, plants taken in the spring and early summer from last year's growth, like warm, humid environment. Softwood cuttings are usually taken from flush growth in the spring. They are very soft because they grow rapidly and require care to minimize water loss. Roses can be propagated any time of the year, but they recommend that cool months are best, preferably in the fall. Stems that have recently bloomed. You want to take a 6 to 8 inch cutting on the roses, and you want bright light but not direct sunlight to propagate and to have good luck with your plants. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cut this at an angle just below a bud. We're going to take the leaves off, and you can see here that the leaves are off. This is about the way you want it to look after you take the leaves off. And we're going to take about half of the leaves off here so you don't get too much water loss. And you want to take a knife or some instrument to take the outer layer of that off. And like I said, you want to use a rooting compound or a rooting powder, but don't dip it into your container. put it in a separate container. You get you a good amount of rooting powder on there. And then here we have half vermiculite and half perlite. And it's wetted. And so you want to take, like, pencil or some instrument, and then put that down in there so that you don't take all the rooting powder off of your stem. And like on this particular one here, like I say, we're going to take about half of the leaves off. So that they don't lose too much moisture. And again, you want to get that outer layer off. And what we're propagating here today is salvia. And salvia roots just really well. And so it's going to take about 6 weeks for your roots to start developing. And you just want to, again, put a label on here what your plan is, and the date that you put it in there, so that you don't forget and try to get them out too early. Most of your propagation where you're doing like the root cuttings, the stem cuttings, it's going to take about 6 weeks for them to really start rooting and start having what you really want, where you can transplant it out into the garden. Now when these begin to root, you don't want to just pull it up because you're going to take part of your roots off. You want to take this little fork or a fork and go down under that plant and lift it so that you don't damage the roots. Now you can use it, leave this out like now in bright light, or you can do it in a plastic bag where it will hold the moisture, but you want to keep your soil damp. Don't overwater, but just keep it damp so that it has the moisture to cause you to have the roots to produce. These are very good methods of propagation to increase your plants. So these are ways that we've just demonstrated to increase your plants, to be able to share the plants that you have, people that want part of the plants you have, and you don't have to damage your plants to give them what you want to share with others. And so there are other methods of propagation with other types of plants, but these are some easy methods for the woody plants and for blackberry plants, for separating plants like all your lilies. They have to be separated every now and then. They just get in such a clump that you just have to separate them. And when you separate them, you can do the chipping, or you can just separate them and put them in a different location, or you can share them with your friends and with your neighbors. So these are really good ways to help others and to increase your stock of plants.